Hey guys, what's up? It's Muaaz here and welcome back to another video. So in today's video I'm actually going to be teaching you guys how to build a VR ready gaming PC for only $500. And I know I did make a video like this in August of 2016, but I thought it wouldn't be a bad idea to make an updated 2017 version of the video with some different parts and stuff like that. All the parts which I'm going to be talking about in the build are going to be directly from Amazon, so if you do have a Prime membership then you'll actually be able to get them shipped to your house in just like 2 days and be able to start your build. And if you don't have a Prime membership then it's just going to take a bit longer, but maybe that's something you might want to look into. At the time that I'm currently making this video, the price does come out to around $500, but at the time that you might be watching this video, maybe in a month or 2 months or like a year or something, there's a chance that prices may have fluctuated, but the build is most likely going to stay around the $500 range, even after price changes. And my favorite thing about builds like these is that there's always going to be room for tons of upgrades in the future, and the reason it's like this is because I made sure to pick components which aren't too out of date in regards to your CPU socket type or your graphics card and things like that. All in all, with this build, you're going to be getting a fantastic PC, which is going to be powerful enough to handle literally any game out there, whether that's going to be in 1080p or 1440p. You should be able to play whatever you want without any hiccups. You'll probably even be able to try out some 4K gaming on some lower settings if you would like to. Anyways, before we get started, I just wanted to say, be sure to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you aren't already, because I am on my way to 30,000 subscribers and all help is appreciated. Anyways, let's get on with the video. So powering our build is actually going to be the Intel Core i3-6100, and I know what you're thinking, ew, it's an i3 which means it sucks, and if you have that kind of mindset, it's pretty clear where you stand when it comes to building PCs, but trust me, this Core i3 is going to be absolutely fantastic for gaming builds. And you're right, since we are on a budget, you could go with an AMD if you wanted and save even more money, but you would be missing out on a ton of expandability options. The reason why I love this processor so much is because it's an i3 which is running at a whopping 3.7 GHz and it's also hyper-threaded. This is great because the processor allows us to run basically any game out there on this build, and that's actually because the hyper-threading allows us to run the Core i3 as if it's a quad-core processor, even though it's only a dual-core to begin with. And honestly, it's pretty hard to complain about having an i3 when it runs this good and it only retails around like $100. And so now we can move away from the processor and actually head over to the motherboard. And right here we're actually going to be using the GIGABYTE H110M A socket 1151 motherboard. And if you remember from my last build, I actually used the same motherboard, but instead it was an Asus one. And don't get me wrong, the Asus one was a fantastic motherboard, but this one's only $59 and delivers the same features, so I didn't want you guys to spend more than you have to in order to get the same overall item. And in doing so, I'm going to be saving you guys around like 20 bucks, which you can spend elsewhere in the build. Anyways, the GIGABYTE motherboard is actually a pretty basic and normal motherboard if I'm being honest with you guys, but the one thing that I made sure of was that it's actually future proof, and by that I mean that you have a ton of future expandability options, so in case you ever want to switch out your processor to a next generation i3 or an i5 or an i7, you'll be able to do so, and you can also bump up the memory whenever you want to or something like that. So honestly, you really can't go wrong with picking this motherboard over other motherboards. And since we are already talking about memory, for this build I actually went with the 8GB kit of Crucial Ballistics Sport RAM. And you might be wondering why I chose a single 8GB stick instead of two 4GB sticks, and the reason I did that for this build is what I mentioned previously, and that's for future expandability options. In case you ever want to bump up your RAM to, I don't know, maybe like 16GB, then it would be super easy for you to do so because you still have a full slot available for memory on the motherboard if you do want to upgrade. So there's a chance that some of you guys might think that 8GB of RAM isn't a lot, but trust me, it's going to be more than enough to play any of the games out on the market today, and as I said before, it's going to be super easy for you to actually upgrade to 16GB or really whatever you want to upgrade to. Moving away from the processor, motherboard, and basically the memory, for the storage I actually went with the classic Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB 7200 RPM hard drive. That's a mouthful, but anyway, this hard drive is going to be used in almost every single build you ever look up on YouTube, including builds upwards of $1,000, and it's a great long-lasting hard drive, which is honestly why so many people use it, and it's only going to set you back about $50, so it's really cheap, and you're going to be getting 1,000 GB, so you really can't go wrong with this hard drive, and it's high quality, so trust me, there's a really low chance this is going to fail on you in the first years. And the bright side is that if you ever do want to switch over to an SSD, it can be done easily, as there's tons of softwares available to help you do so and switch from a hard drive to an SSD as your primary hard drive. And now moving on from the hard drive, we actually have the graphics card, and I'm sure it's safe to assume that this is probably what most of you guys have been waiting for me to talk about. In this build, I actually decided to go with the EVGA GeForce GTX 1060. This is probably the best graphics card you can find out there at the moment if you're looking for the best price to performance cards. The graphics card, otherwise known as the GPU, is usually the most important part of the build and the most expensive. This is actually going to be the 3GB version of the GTX 1060, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be able to run any game that you throw at it. it. As I said before, this build is powerful enough to handle basically any game out there, and this graphics card is honestly the main reason why that's possible. And next up, we've actually got the case, and what you're about to notice is, if you did see my 2016 build video, the case that I chose in that build is going to be the exact same case that I chose for this build, and the case is actually the CORSAIR Carbide Series 100R mid-tower case. And the reason why I love this case so much is because it's a great case for an entry-level gaming PC, which also provides amazing airflow. The only downside to this case that some of you guys may find is that there's not a ton of colors popping out, and it's more of a basic yet professional looking case. If you are looking for LED fans and things like that, then it's not too expensive to go ahead and buy them yourself and mount them in the case. But if you feel like that's too much work, then you can probably spend an extra $20 and get a flashier looking case, but in the end that part's solely up to you. I just threw my opinion in there, but it's really up to you whatever case you want to get. Feel free to be customizable with all the parts and stuff like that, and just make sure to check that they're still all compatible. And lastly, we've got the power supply, and for this build I actually decided to go with the 500 watt EVGA power supply. And just this past week my friend bought parts for a computer that he wanted to build, and I went over to his house, which he invited me to help him build it. And something I noticed while I was there was that he had this exact same power supply in his build, and something you might notice is that this build that we're actually making won't even come close to using 500 watts, but all that means is that you're gonna have some extra capacity to work with when upgrading your computer in the future if you ever decide to do so. And this is going to be an incredibly efficient power supply, which is definitely going to be lasting you quite a while. So I highly recommend the 500 watt power supply. You're definitely going to have some cables that are just going to be sitting around and stuff like that, because you're not going to be able to use every single cable. But I think I basically just covered everything for the build. We covered the power supply, the case, we even covered the graphics card, the hard drive, the memory, the motherboard, and the processors. Anyways guys, I think I just ran through basically everything for the build. We covered the power supply, the case, the graphics card, the processor, the hard drive, the motherboard, and we also covered the memory. So basically every component for a PC. You still do have to buy an operating system, but I'm going to leave that part up to you guys and whatever you guys want to do, whether that's Linux, Windows, or whatever you guys want to do. Anyways guys, that's really it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Drop a comment below to show me that you guys do enjoy these kinds of videos. And feel free to actually go ahead and drop a subscription if you aren't already, because I am on over to 30,000 subscribers, which is crazy. And all help is appreciated. Also, let me know if you guys would ever want me to make a video on how to actually build a PC, and by that I mean let me know if you guys want me to order some PC parts and actually make a proper tutorial on how to put them all together in order to get a fully functioning PC. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.